Prince Tony, good morning. Thank you so much for joining us.
Good morning,
This
Prince.
is your first time in the studio this year.
Exactly.
It's good to have you.
Thank you.
Let's,
Good morning, Nigerians.
Let's get into the conversation. By the way, happy Democracy Day to you.
Thank you.
Yes.
Assuming we have a whole lot to celebrate democratically in Nigeria. But thank you all the
Some
same.
people will say civil rule instead of democracy, because for them, there's a lot that democracy brings that Nigerians are not yet enjoying.
Exactly.
What do you make of that argument?
Of course, the argument is as sound as a daylight. We are having a civil rule in Nigeria. As a matter of fact, from 1999 to today, like I've always said, it gets worse by the day. So we have not actually come to embrace democracy in its entirety. We are just trying to survive in Nigeria. This is not democracy, because one of the hallmarks of democracy is that you have your election free and fair, and we've not been able to achieve that over from 1999 to today. It's from one electoral rigging to another advanced electoral malpractice. So it's just terrible. But I hope that one day, like what happened during last election, where you have a lot of Nigerian young people coming to realize that they need to take their destiny by their own hands, one day indeed we might be able to take our destiny in our own hands.
Interesting what you just said about young people being able to take their destinies in their hands. But then looking at the way that things have been in the last couple of years, you mentioned how successive elections have been marred by certain irregularities. With that's a function of democracy. The president, in his presidential address today to Nigerians, mentioned the electoral process and how people get into power. Many have said, look, that's presidential address. That address today was quite inspiring. It was a good one, but then he also pointed out that there's need for judicial reforms, and he says the reforms have just started with the unification of judges' retirement age, that the reforms in the judicial sector or judicial arm of government has just started. What kind of reforms would you want to see with the electoral process as well as the judicial system? Because it seems like these are the two institutions that determine who leads us as a country.
Yes. Well, what the president said during his speech this morning, well, I've not read it, and unfortunately I didn't listen to him. But one thing that is certain with our Nigerian leaders is the fact that very intelligent people write speeches for the leaders, and they will come before the camera and read it for Nigerians. And I tell you, most of the things they say do not really matter for Nigerians. What matters for us is what they do, the practicality of how they take governance serious, and how are they able to implement all those paperworks. So until we see the president implementing a whole lot of his policies and how do they say it, doing the talking, that is when we will take him serious. And again, you cannot be talking about
walking the talk now.
Yes, walking the talk. You cannot be talking about judicial reform when judiciary is still very much attached to the executive. Until the judiciary gets their independence, you can't discuss anything judicial reform, because you can't employ somebody and you are paying the person and expect the person not to do your bidding. It's practically impossible. It's just like in this your establishment, you are telling me, because you're a professional as a journalist, you can't take instructions from your organ at the top. So since somebody controls your finance, the person controls you. So until the judiciary becomes independent, the same thing is applicable to our INEC, our electoral process. Until we see a serious level of independence, we can't. Then we're not serious.
Many people say, the appointment of the chairman of the Independent National Electoral Commission and the national commissioners of the commission should be removed from the president appointing them.
Exactly.
Now, what would you advise? Who would you rather have appoint or what would be the selection process that you would prefer to see how, you know, commissioners and the national chairman of the commission are appointed?
Well, unfortunately, one could have easily suggest the National Assembly, but we see that National Assembly on their own is not even independent. You see how the executive is trying to influence who becomes the speaker. They are doing everything possible to influence who becomes the Senate president, and even deputy chief whip and all. So you now begin to imagine where and how do we can we get it right in Nigeria? Because if you say let that ball stop on the table of the legislators, you will see that with money and some other things surrounding money, they will still find a way to manipulate it. So I think there is need to allow, for instance, the judiciary to determine comprehensively who becomes the chief judge and the judges of our Supreme Court. If you allow it, let judiciary handle their affairs without interference from anybody, from the executive, I think we may be able to get it right. Then somebody talked about, I listened to President Jonathan, when he was saying that if he had come back the second time, that he wanted to gather people from different walks of life, and they wouldn't know why they were coming. And once they gather, they would tell them, please, let's suggest who will be the chairman of INEC. I don't know if you listened to him when he said that is a very wonderful idea. He said he will gather from religious men, from politics, from traditional rulers, from people from all walks of life. He said before, you know, they may get 10 names, from there they cut it to 9, 10, before you know it, they will arrive at one person. And Nigerians will see. But
do you think that would be a smart way to do this? Because, I mean, bringing people into one room without even knowing what they're coming to do and asking them to appoint people, would that afford them time to have known the caliber or the what you call it now, the pedigree of the people who
we know ourselves in Nigeria, Prince Alpha. We know the man. Why are these people, even look at what is playing out in the National Assembly, you know, now currently? Why don't the executive allow the lawmakers to appoint whoever they want to appoint? That is because we know ourselves in Nigeria. We know those who will not support executive rascality. They know. Look. No matter how you look at it, you see the 8th Assembly under Saraki is a wonderful one for Nigerians. But you can't compare Saraki's assembly and Lawan's assembly. You can't. Because one is a rubber stamp, the other one tries to scrutinize, tries to, you know, find out why and Z of all the policies that they need to be part of. But this other one is everything is okay, and that is why Nigeria have accumulated trillions of loans that I don't know which generation that will pay.
Let's talk about, well, as of today, it seems like Nigeria does not have a National Assembly until tomorrow, when the 10th National Assembly will be inaugurated. And there's drama playing out. Some people, yesterday we saw Senator Ojuzo Kalu, on Saturday rather, you know, whipping on national television and talking about how, you know, people who had no source of, you know, explainable source of wealth, you know, are not thieves, but he himself, who had been even a billionaire before time, who could afford anything that life could afford or offer, you know, was thrown to jail. And he says those who threw him in jail knew why they threw him in jail and all that stuff. For a man of his caliber to whip on television, on national television like that, you know, in the public space at the national chambers of the National Assembly. And also, just the same, yesterday we saw Alassane Ouattara and Gagdi step down for Tajuddin Abbas to be Speaker of the House of Assembly. What do you think could be going on? Because as it is, these are supposed to be, why does it seem like, you know, the other arms of government in this country do not know their powers, do not know their responsibilities to provide checks and balances and act as watchdogs over the other? You know, it just seems like we don't really know the principles of the separation of power that we have. The executive seems to just, this wasn't the case in, you know, between 1999 to 2007, when we had, you know, the National Assembly changed leadership almost 5 times under the Obasanjo administration, because the the National Assembly at the time knew that they had some responsibility and they could not just be muscled or become stooges in the hands of the president. Even though the president wanted a particular person, a group of particular people, they kept changing them. Impeaching and impeaching, and impeachment was a very popular thing at the time.
Very popular.
Now, we're talking about the judiciary. We're talking about the legislature. These are supposed to be independent arms of government, providing what do you call it now, checks and balances to the executive. But somehow the executive kind of these days has its way with the National Assembly and judiciary.
Well, I listened to Ojuzo. I saw him when he was crying, and I remembered what happened a couple of years after the Civil War when Ojukwu came back from exile. Something happened, and he said, "Good morning, Ogoni," and he made that greeting in the afternoon. He greeted Ogoni people. In fact, he was basically talking to Ken Sarawiwa, and he greeted him, "Good morning," in the afternoon, meaning you are just waking up. All right. So Ojuzo might have just woken up because he said that the country is not being fair to some of them in this country, and I want to believe that some of them he is talking about is the tribe that he comes from, the Igbo people, because his argument is that since the president is from the southwest, the vice president I think is from the northeast, if I'm not mistaken, it is fair to have the Senate president to come from the southeast. And as a matter of fact, the southeast Senate caucus led by Senator Ifanyoba have actually made that very clear. They have met and they gave a press conference and said this is their position. All right. However, if you look at the reaction of many Nigerians, particularly those people who come from the southeast, many of them are not supporting Ojuzo Kalu, simply because I am talking of the masses now, not the elites. Because Ojuzo told us that this is not time for an Igbo man to become the president of Nigeria, that we need to build bridges. So people are still telling Ojuzo that he need to continue building that bridge until it is the turn, or it is the time for an Igbo person to become president of anything, either the president of Nigeria or president of the Senate. So that notwithstanding, whatever that might have made a man like Oji to cry in public must be very, very severe and serious, outside what the rest of us might have seen that is happening. But the issue is that, for me, Ojuzo is qualified enough to be Senate President of Nigeria. Apart from the fact that he's an Igbo man, he has paid his dues. Remember, he practically funded the forming of PDP post 1999 to 1999. And he's a very strong man. I know how he fought Obasanjo during the third term saga. He was a strong voice. Then he was a governor. He was a strong voice that opposed Obasanjo from achieving his aim and stuff like that. And in the Senate, he's also a strong voice. So nothing ought to have stopped him from becoming the Senate president, if not the fact that maybe the executive, the current executive, are afraid. Maybe they are afraid that this man might not be, he will not be able to turn. Because like you rightly said, the Senate, if they know their powers, they ought to be doing a whole lot to checkmate the activities of the executive. But what we have seen in recent past is a rubber stamp legislature.
Now, let's stay with Ojuzo Kalu for a bit. Abdulaziz Yari, the former governor of Zamfara State, isn't backing down. Do you think that, and he's garnering support? A lot of senators seem to be, backing him, even against the executive that wants Senator Godswill Akpabio to, take the position. Tomorrow is the day that all of these unveils. What do you see playing out? Do you see it going to Abdulaziz Yari, who's from the Northwest, or would it be what the executive want playing out? Or do you also anticipate the Saraki-like drama to unfold, the drama that unfolded in 2015? Do you expect such a drama to unfold at the Senate?
It's very, very possible. Tomorrow and the next, the inauguration will be tomorrow, then the election will be next tomorrow. I'm sure it will be quite dramatic. But for me, as a Nigerian who want a strong legislature, I would prefer a situation where Yari emerges. Because if Yari is not the candidate of the executive, it means that they will not be able to turn him. But in Nigeria, money plays a whole lot of role. You may see someday, if you drop some sacks of money with him, he will find a whole lot of logic to contradict what he said yesterday, and it will stand. But I will prefer Yari to become the Senate president, and maybe possibly Orji Zokalo becomes the deputy, so that this government will be made to stand on their toes.
No, but then let's look at the calculation that many people have put forward on account of religion and ethnicity. So the president would be Muslim from the southwest, the vice president would be Muslim from the northeast, and then the number 3 man, the president of the Senate, would be a Muslim from the northwest. Do you think that would create some level of balance in the political
the imbalance is already there. The imbalance is already there. That is already bad enough that we have Muslim ticket, and it has come to reality. All right, for me, I want to see a country that is functioning irrespective of who is leading, whether the person is an Igbo, Yoruba, Hausa, whether the person is Christian, Muslim. Remember, Saraki is also a Muslim. He was able to put Buhari on his toe in his first tenure. It never mattered then. And his manners man, Dino Milaye, is a Christian. So it never mattered. You see, the elites of Nigeria are the ones who use religion and ethnicity to balkanize and divide the masses. When it comes to corruption, when it comes to sharing money, when it comes to sharing the cake, they don't know what color are you, they don't know which religion you practice and stuff like that. These guys are together when it comes to sharing. And I tell you something, after this whole drama, you see how all of them will come back and begin to realign and realign.
There's another high-ranking senator from the southeast, Osita Izunaso. Seems like his name has disappeared from the mix in the last couple of days. What is the position? What do you think is going on with the southeast senators? Because at the end of the day, people say, look, what's the difference between Orji Zokalo and Godswill Akpabio? What's the difference between Godswill Akpabio and Osita Izunaso? They're all just the same people, if you ask. So why the problem? Why the preference of a particular person over the other?
Because you never can tell the agreements that were done before the election. And remember that despite all the money spent in Southeast, APC they couldn't win any state. But Akpabio was able to pull some strings in Akwa Ibom. And apart from election, who knows what they might have, the agreement they had before election. And again, if you watch people's antecedent, anybody that knows Orji Zokalo very well knows that he's not a man you can push around when he's convinced and when he's ready to work. Orji Zokalo is a very determined, as he was the youngest governor in 1999, yet he was able to fight Obasanjo's government to a standstill. So his antecedent is speaking for him. Akpabio is also a rich guy, but he may not have the kind of dexterity that Orji Zokalo have in terms of standing firm for what he believes in. So most leaders in Nigeria, most African leaders, particularly the kind of democracy we practice here, will not want somebody who will be an obstacle of any kind for him. And so I'm not surprised that Orji Zokalo can never be preferred by the executive. They know him. The Orji Zokalo is not a new name. Instead of even going for Orji Zokalo, they will rather go for Osita Izunaso. He's a calm gentleman, and we have never had any page of him that is hard-edged. So Akpabio, we know why they are choosing him. The executive want a smooth ride for these 4 years. And
would that translate into something good for the country?
No, not at all.
In the last 4 years,
not at all,
hasn't really shown that even when the executive and the legislature having a smooth ride only translates to what's good for them and not really what's good for Nigerians.
It is not in the interest of Nigerians whatsoever. For instance, the good relationship that existed between the Ninth Assembly and General Buhari's second tenure translated into humongous debt for Nigeria. That was that. And I can't tell you that you sitting here benefited from that debt.
But they say that, I mean, all of that is what resulted in the infrastructural developments that the Buhari administration was able to achieve.
You are really telling me that
the second Niger bridge and the likes, the Kaduna, what do you call it, Abuja, Kano Road, the what do you call it, train. Rail lines
that is functioning effectively, the one that is functioning effectively,
and the rest of them. So, what do you make of
all these?
That line of defense.
For me, all these are insults on the intelligence of Nigerians. These leaders, I can't tell you I know any of them whose children are in Nigeria. All of them go for malaria treatment abroad because they know that they have messed this country up. So they can't tell us that until you borrow such humongous amount of money, you can't be able to do anything in your country. Those countries they are running to, what is their debt profile? Is their debt profile commensurate with the quality and quantity of infrastructure development in the country? Can this be compared to what is happening in Nigeria? There's no basis for comparison. We build a bridge and we are celebrating it. When in Dubai, what natural resources do most of these countries have compared to what we have in Nigeria? Remember that the former chief of staff to General Sani Abacha, what was that his name? Mustafa. Remember the revelation he made before the election about diamond in Borno State and some parts of Zamfara, that the government, the big people in Nigeria, cater away in millions. So nobody should tell us that until you borrow before you build a bridge in Nigeria. That is an insult. They should take a leaf from what is obtainable in civilized country. We have what it takes. God has blessed Nigeria with the natural resources to take care of our day-to-day well-being. But this is not done. Rather, that just telling us stories just to keep us discussing one thing or the other.
Interesting. Let's talk about something that was quite. I think we'll have to. Something that was quite big when we returned to democracy, or even at the turn of the millennium, the dividends of democracy. It was touted everywhere. Everyone was really expectant. There was, excitement in the air. Everyone at that time who was speaking to Nigerians would say, "Oh, provide you dividends of democracy. We'll bring you the dividends of democracy." And today, it's been 24 years or so since that time, and Nigerians seem to not have enjoyed any of these dividends of democracy. Speaking of dividends of democracy, what would you say you as a Nigerian have enjoyed?
Is it not second Nigeria bridge? Just mentioned it, that a bridge was built and it becomes a national celebration. I mean, does that sound like people in 21st century? Somebody built a monorail that I'm sure today is not even working. I don't know how many of them that are still working, and it calls for national celebration. That tells you that we are 20 years. Remember, it was Dr. Chris Ngige that said that Obiano took Anambra State 20 years backward. The successive government in Nigeria dragged Nigeria back, and that is why they continue to frustrate the electoral process so that the right person does not take charge. I mean, for one, so that people will feel that we are the ones that put this person, we can as well sack him. So the dividend of democracy they are talking of, I don't know where and how I have seen all these things compared to what is even. Look, Burundi. A friend of mine ran to Burundi a couple of months ago, and he was telling me we should all run to Burundi.
Run to Burundi.
Yes,
he ran from Nigeria.
Exactly.
To Burundi.
And this is a bit.
So he's doing search of greener pastures in Burundi.
Of course. So you can imagine. Look at what happened during the war in Sudan. Until that war happened, I never knew that millions of Nigerians are there. So what kind of, if we have it right here, as we ought to, as we have been blessed by God, what should Nigerians be looking for in Sudan? What should be Nigerians be looking for in Burundi? Burundi is not up to Lagos and Ogun State put together. And they have next to nothing as their natural resources. Yet Nigerians are running there.
I'm telling you, that's cool.
You know, my own brother, Ambassador Elijah Onyagba, is current ambassador of Nigeria to Burundi. And you see, through him, a number of Nigerians have gone to Burundi to find greener pasture. So what kind of a country are we actually running? So that tells you that the so-called dividend of democracy is still in the cradle. We are not yet anywhere close to where we ought to be.
We'll talk about some other dimensions of the dividends of democracy, speaking of human rights and the freedom of expression, the freedom to associate, the freedom, all of those freedoms that are associated with democracy that Nigerians seem not to be enjoying. Stay with us. The conversation continues right here on your radio experience you can count on.
Eagles 102.3 Abuja.
The 2023 WAEC May-June results analysis for Stella Maris College Abuja based on distinctions are as follows: parallel distinction 90, 8 distinction and above 50, 7 distinction and above 43, 6 distinction and above 38, 5 distinction and above 14, 4 distinction and above 3, 3 distinction and above 3, total 170. So why not choose Stella Maris College Abuja today? The dates for entrance exams are 24th June and 12th August 2023 respectively. Stella Maris College is at Area 1 and Wumba for day college, while boarding college is at Life Camp Abuja. For more enquiries, call 0809 037 3727 or 0817 204 7070 or check us online www.smsabuja.com.
Eagles 102.3 Abuja.
And thank you so much for staying with us. The conversation continues here. This is your radio experience you can count on. This is our Democracy Day special. We're looking at Nigeria's democracy and how it's fared in the last 23 years or so, coming from 1999 until date, since the return of democracy, the Fourth Republic as it is. My guest has been Prince Tony Ezimo, who is a political philosopher and public affairs commentator, joining us in the conversation this morning. You too can be a part of it. Feel free to jump in now with your 2 cents. Let us know what you think. 09073530044 and 09087668888. Hello, good morning.
Hello, good morning, my friend. God bless you, sir.
Good morning, Takeaway. Good to have you join us.
Democracy Day, sir.
I wish you the same.
Well done, sir. Good morning to your guest.
Good morning.
Yes, my name is Undu Tekimbe, all the way from National State.
Go ahead, Takeaway. Go ahead, Takeaway. We can hear you.
Yes, my friend, you see, during the campaign, they just concluded the general election. I heard that Abubakar said something. He said, deliver your word, your state, your local government, before you come and start asking for contracts or appointments. Abubakar made them understand that anybody that did not deliver, by the time that he has won, that they should not come asking for anything. And you see, the endorsement, in terms of, Apache, I think, it's a way to start one. One, Apache is well qualified. Apache is well experienced. And if we look at it, I think it has become an emotional thing for Mr. President, because Apache was instrumental by supporting Tinubu, by taking down for him to emerge, at the primaries, because there was so much opposition, against Mr. President. But Apache was one among the people that stood by him. He won as well as stepping down for Mr. President, and he emerged, in that primaries. So I think for Mr. President, it's an emotional thing. And having said that, Apache also was able to deliver to some extent. And if you see the Southeast, The fact it has occupied the position of the Senate president more than any other part of this country. If we take out the former president, what?
Taking me seems like connection did you wrong there. Hello, good morning.
Hello, good morning. On the line.
Good morning, Oganemano. Good to have you. I was going to reach out to you towards the end of the show, but it's good that you're here now. Talk to me.
Yeah, your guest has said it all, and one other person that said we are not yet here democratically. What we are practicing now is civil rule, nothing less, because the dividends of democracy is not being felt by the citizens. There is a lot of things going wrong in our system. The judiciary is not independent. There is no rule of law is not being obeyed. Buhari was just disobeying orders and the rest. People are being arrested and molested arbitrarily. The list is endless. Name them.
Okay.
So we really your guest, I commend him. He has said it all that we are just practicing civil rule. Then on the whipping of Uzo Kalo, what they did to him is also applicable to many Nigerians. Many Nigerians are being done the way all Uzo Kalo is done. It's a good thing that he's one of the elite and he has experienced it. I saw him also whipping. I saw him on television whipping. Also, I said so. It's good for you that the rich also cry. Hello?
Yes, we can hear
yes,
you.
ma'am. Yeah, so it's a good thing that they themselves will experience it. They should experience what the common man in Nigeria is experience. So there is the need for those in government to sit up, because if they didn't want a revolution will come, because we can't continue like this. It can never continue. I'm not talking about a revolution of maybe taking government by force. In any way one can effect a change. That is what I mean by revolution. So anybody listening to me, I'm not a violent man, but what can obtain his right or fight for his right, it doesn't mean by overthrowing the government.
Okay.
Thank you,
Thank you so much.
A nice celebration.
Have an amazing day yourself. Okay, let's get in this next caller. Hello, good morning. Happy Democracy Day to
Good
you.
morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. How is the week?
Very well. Who's joining us?
This week is calling from Airport Road.
Is this Ikechukwu Diego?
Yes.
Ikechukwu Diego. Go ahead, let's hear you. Go ahead, let's hear you.
But Mr. Odjus Okalo crying in the public. You see, this life you see, my brother, no matter what your brother or no matter what you and your brother have, don't come out in public and say anything against your brother or to work against your brother, no matter what it is. We are crying that Igbos, we are crying that we are not in position in a very powerful position in Nigeria's government. Yes, we are the cause, my brother. We are the cause because we as a person that want to come and make the enemy feel, yes, we are the one that come out, we are saying the truth. Yes, I'm the one that is against my people. Yes, because I support you guys. I want to be the good one among them. No. Even what those are our brothers now, the why they are reading us because of the educated or they have the capacity more than us, because of what they have inside them. Whatever they are doing inside is what they are doing inside. They can ask from them, but it's not like we would like to prove that yes, we are the good person. So let him enjoy it. If he said that Igbo, it's not time for an Igbo man to be a president, I think let him finish the bridging. Let him finish the bridging. When he finishes the bridging, I think the Senate president will be given to him. He's still building the bridging. You get what I'm saying? So let all Igbos, let them know this thing, let them have this thing in common. No matter what your brother what you have with your brother. Don't come in public and to present yourself as a good person to turn against your brother. It's not good. This is what is bringing us down. Brother, this is what is taking us back. It's not like we don't have the capacity.
Okay,
It's okay.
thank you very much. Have an amazing day. You've heard the callers. Well, how would you respond to someone like Ikechukwu?
There's an adage in my place that says, if you sell your brother, your buyer will not even trust you.
But is it about ethnicity and brotherhood? They say politics is about interest. Okay,
I agree.
So where your interest aligns, that's where you go. There's a lot of people who do not even believe in an Igbo presidency now. There's a lot of people who do not believe that someone from the ethnic stock should even be president. So what happens to those people?
I agree with you. Prior to the election, if APC had brought Chibika Amechi, who is from River State, or Professor Sibanjo, who is from Lagos, you will see that many Igbo people would have supported them. Many people are talking about P2B because they have seen that he's the one that has what it takes to move Nigeria forward. It's not about ethnicity. Now, if Orji Okalu is suffering from his own narrative, the narrative he was presenting, he was telling Ndibo that it is not yet time, that let us continue to build bridge. If, like many others did, he just supported his candidate on the ground of party level, we will understand. And nobody would have had issues with him. And remember, he never supported Asiwaju from the beginning. He was routing for the current Senate President, Lawan, until after the primaries. He would have started playing party politics. We would have the sympathy for him that, yes, he's an APC person, and there's no way he would have supported somebody in PDP or somebody in Labour or any other political party. It would have been more reasonable. But he continued to tell us why the Igbo people should not be discussing presidency. Rather, we must continue to build endless bridge. And that is why currently people are telling him that they have block, cement and stones to donate for the bridge. That is not yet time for him as a person to be Senate President of Nigeria. And maybe he thought that by taking the kind of side he took during campaign, he will easily be given tickets to Senate presidency. Now he has seen another thing, and he has to. So it's not about ethnicity, but the kind of narrative he was championing wasn't okay by many people.
Well, the messages here. Let's read some of these messages, and this one is from Chooks, I guess. Chooks says, Super Monday to the princess in the studio. Is an emperor breezing into the studio later? Anyways, here's my gist. The president's speech didn't really inspire me. How come Mr. President couldn't refrain from indirectly attacking the opposition, saying they should accept defeat to enable them enjoy victory later? You go on to say, Prince, please, Ihanacho, I listened to you in the 7 o'clock hour about Emefiele's travails. Therefore, I want your guest to weigh in. Isn't the suspended CBN governor being treated as a fall guy for the inconsistencies of the past government? And if yes, is this really fair to the two-term central banker? Chooks is asking. Well, the arrest of Godwin Emefiele as the former governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria is saying, well, some people believe that this is a witch hunt. Some people believe that this is personal vendetta. The president himself, taking out his, what do you call it now, pain of what happened during the primaries and even before the primaries, out on, and even after the primaries with the Naira redesign that personally affected his campaigns. This might just be a personal issue that the president is taking too far. But then many others believe that the monetary policies under Godwin Emefiele was an entire mess, and so he should be prosecuted for it.
All these are very correct. The fact that I tell you, at the end of Tinubu's tenure, people are going to suffer on his behalf. No doubt about it. People suffered on behalf of President Jonathan. That is the kind of things we do in this country. These are not correct, but we do them. However, many professionals are not having any sympathy for former Governor Emefiele, because he sacrificed professionalism on the altar of sycophancy and mediocrity. Yes, if he had resigned honorably at a time, maybe would have been the hero of current either banking system or Nigeria generally. But he continued to play the rhythm. He continued to dance to the rhythm the executive was playing for him. He sacrificed professionalism on the altar of mediocrity and sycophancy, and that is why many professionals, even his fellow bankers, if you talk to them privately, they will tell you that he deserves what he's getting. You know, how will you be dishing out inconsistent monetary policies that is affecting an average Nigeria terribly, and you don't care? And let me tell you, for the first time in the history of Nigeria, we have a sitting CBN governor vying for presidency. Forget all the abracadabra they did. Somebody bought phone for me. Somebody bought hundreds and thousands of vehicles and branded and stuff like that. Nobody can do that just like that for somebody who does not have interest or somebody who is not funding it. So Emefiele is not what I'm even asking the current government to do is to spread the prosecution, not just the governor. Somebody scam Nigeria with an airplane, and we have not heard he is being pursued. A lot of scam happened under this government. A lot of snakes swallowed money, pythons swallowed money, monkeys ran away with money. We want to see proper prosecution. And again, just this morning, I heard over the radio, I don't know which radio, that DSS wants to go for investigation and search and stuff like that. This is part of the thing that get me, tensed up in Nigeria. You don't have any evidence. In fact, somebody said Nigerians should gather and give DSS evidence against MFLA. This is not it. This is not how it's done. They ought to have done widespread investigation, gather their evidences before this media trial, because at the end of the day, you will see that the man you will stop hearing about it.
Exactly,
and
that's
the
a concern for many Nigerians,
because
arrests are not new. The
DSS
is not today.
It's not new.
Arrests have been going on.
As a matter of fact, some people get more popular from that.
Exactly. We see the likes of Magu today, who are roaming free, who don't have any, but people want to see actual prosecution. And if this is clear, and the judiciary says or the court says this man should be jailed for a particular term, let him see and leave out the term of his conviction. That is if he's found guilty. But if not, also let's look at other people. Let's look at other aspects. Some other names have been mentioned. Look, let's have this person arrested and prosecuted. Have this other person arrested and prosecuted. Not just a situation where the DSS is doing a charade and arresting and making videos of people being arrested. I mean, since when did we start to do that? If you really want to prosecute someone, I don't think that the media would be the place to do that.
No, not at all.
Anyway, let's wrap up now and talk about what Nigerians should expect or Nigerians should be hoping for with this new turn. By the way, Democracy Day is June 12th because of the MKO Abiola supposed victory in 1993. Yes. That election was adjudged to be the most free and fair in this country. What would be your expectations for Nigeria's democracy, going forward?
From what I gathered from history, because in 1993, I don't know how old was I, but you see that Nigerians, irrespective of religion, trooped out in mass and voted Nkeo Abiola and Kingibe. Both are Muslims, all right? Nobody cared, because at a time they just needed to get themselves liberated, and nobody cared. They saw that this man had what it takes to salvage them, and they went for him. The same thing that happened this time around, like many youths went for Peter Obi because they felt he was the one to save them. But since Tinubu is there now, for me, until a court of competent jurisdiction says so, Tinubu is the president of Nigeria, and we expect him to lead. He applied for the job, did everything possible to get the job, so we need to see him working. We don't need excuse, whether he's old, weak, sick, we don't care. All we know is that we want him to work for Nigerians, to make sure that the lives of Nigerians are better. Today in Abuja, it's not easy to move around because of fuel scarcity and fuel
Subsidy removal,
so-called
prices.
subsidy removal, which we don't understand what it is. An average Nigerian wants to see his life better. All the semantics, all the grammar, nobody is interested in it. If the government is removing subsidy, they should do it in such a way that that not the poor masses that will still suffer it. Let them.
Well, the president says we all have to sacrifice. We have to make sacrifices.
Nigerians have been sacrificing, and Nigerians are very resilient people.
Let's talk about that for a bit. You know, you just mentioned something that tickled my interest. Nigerians have been sacrificing,
Of course.
but it seems like the elites don't really sacrifice.
Well,
Because we've never seen Nigerian leaders say, "Oh, because of the hardship, we're forfeiting this part
Let
of
me
our-"
resign.
or let's make way for somebody else to take over, or let's even cut down the cost of governance. Let's reduce the fleet of cars, the fleet of aircraft, the fact that we travel abroad to get medical attention, unlike many other Nigerians who may never be able to, even get adequate health care from the primary health care center around their communities because those centers are dilapidated. Now, what do you say, the dichotomy between the elite and the ordinary Nigerian when it comes to lifestyle?
The gap is so wide. The gap is like from here to Damascus. It's too wide. All right. Nigerians have been sacrificing from the time I was born till today. But daily, what do they actually sacrifice? Apart from maybe somebody coming to National Assembly to cry, like Ojuzo did, or the kind of drama Dino Milayo makes and stuff like that, and the rest of them. All right. Nobody has ever resigned because he has discovered that he cannot continue. He doesn't have what it takes to continue. He would rather die there than sacrifice it. So we are very resilient people. I look at the faces of Nigerians and nobody is even, we are suffering and smiling. So we can easily adapt to suffering. And that is why these guys who are the elites get away with everything they do, because we don't really react.
It's funny how Nigerians, like you mentioned, very resilient. Just so someone said, look, 200 million people have just adjusted to new pump prices.
Can you imagine that?
Even though it's not so convenient for them, but they found a way to. Oh, this is what it takes for Nigeria to be better. We're ready to do the sacrifice and make that sacrifice. Good, very good stuff there. Now, as we close, what would be your final thoughts as regards how Nigerians need to live up to hold government accountable so that the dividends of democracy can be delivered to them?
I want the lawmakers to understand that Nigerians have been crying for the past 20 years. They have just started crying themselves, but let them understand that Nigerians have been crying for more than 20 years, trying to see when shall we get it right. And the ball is on their table to make things work for this country. They have the constitutional right to oversee the activities of the executive, to guide the executive, to apply checks and balances where necessary. They should do this without all these selfish interests they display all the time. They should put their constituents always in front and take them as priority in all they do.
Very well said. And this would be a good place to drop the anchors this morning. I'd like to say a big thank you to you, Prince Tony Ezimo. Thank you so much for coming in and having this conversation with us on this Democracy Day 2023.
Thank you.
Appreciate you joining in. And to all of you who have been a part of the conversation, I call you MVP because, I wouldn't be doing anything here without you. Thank you so much for being there. Let's do this again tomorrow at the top of the hour, 9, joining. Oh, I have